Nyra didn't answer. She stared at the holographic path, her mind racing. The council's voice had hesitated earlier, almost as if it were unsure. That moment of weakness, if it even was weakness, gnawed at her. "We should move," she said finally, "before the swarm regroups." Jaxon nodded. The path led them through a labyrinth of obsidian spires. The air grew thinner, the temperature dropping with every step. Nyra's breath fogged and her fingers numbed. Jaxon moved ahead, his movements stiff but deliberate. "You're hurt," Nyra said. "I'll live." "You're bleeding." "I've bled before." She frowned. "You remember that?" He hesitated. "No, but I know it." The path narrowed, forcing them to squeeze between towering rock formations. The ground beneath their feet was slick with frost. Nyra slipped, catching herself on a jagged outcrop. Her palm split open, blood welling against the icy stone. "Careful," Jaxon said, pulling her upright. "Thanks," she wiped her hand on her pants. "You know, for someone who doesn't remember anything, you're surprisingly good at this." "At what?" "Surviving." He didn't respond. The path ended at a massive archway carved into the cliffside. Beyond it, a cavern stretched into darkness. The hologram flickered, pointing inward. Nyra hesitated. "This feels off." "Everything here is off." Jaxon stepped through the archway. The cavern was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow. Bioluminescent fungi clung to the walls, casting an eerie green glow. At the center of the cavern stood a pedestal, and on it rested a crown, jagged, metallic, and pulsing faintly with amber light. Nyra's breath caught. "What is that?" Jaxon approached the pedestal cautiously. "A trap." "Or a reward." The voice boomed, echoing through the cavern. "Final test. Claim the hollow crown. Prove your worth." Nyra glanced at Jaxon. "What do you think?" "I think they're playing with us." "Maybe, but we've come this far." He studied the crown. Its surface was etched with intricate patterns, alien symbols that seemed to shift and writhe under the light. If this is another test, it's not about survival. "Then what?" "Choice." Nyra stepped closer. The crown's light intensified, casting her face in sharp relief. "What if it's a key, a way out of here? Or a way to control us?" She reached out, her fingers hovering inches from the crown. "We can't just leave it." "We can." "And then what? Wander this planet until the Council gets bored and kills us." Jaxon's jaw tightened. "You don't know what that thing does." "Neither do you." The voice interrupted, impatient. "Claim the hollow crown, or forfeit your chance at Phaedra Prime." Nyra's hand trembled. "We don't have a choice." "There's always a choice." She looked at him. "Then help me make it." He hesitated, then nodded. Together, they reached for the crown. The moment their hands touched it, the cavern dissolved. Nyra's vision blurred, her senses overwhelmed by a rush of light and sound. She felt weightless, untethered, as if she were floating in a void. Then the memories came. Fragments at first, flashes of a life she couldn't place. A laboratory, a battlefield, faces she didn't recognize, voices calling her name. "Nyra." Jaxon's voice cut through the chaos. She turned, but he wasn't there. Instead, she saw herself, or a version of herself, standing in a sterile room, surrounded by holographic schematics. "This is wrong," her other self said. "The hollow crown isn't a reward, it's a weapon." A voice, cold and mechanical, responded. "It is necessary." Necessary for what? Control, domination, survival. The scene shifted. Nyra stood on a battlefield, the sky choked with smoke. Jaxon, or someone who looked like him, fought beside her, his movements precise and deadly. "We can't win this," she said. "We don't have to," he replied. "We just have to survive." The memory shattered. Nyra gasped, her vision clearing. She was back in the cavern, the crown in her hands. Jaxon stood beside her, his expression grim. "You saw it too," he said. She nodded. "Fragments, pieces of something." "Not just us, the Council. They've done this before." The voice returned, softer now. "The hollow crown is a relic of the first trials. Those who wear it gain knowledge, but also burden." Nyra stared at the crown. What kind of burden? The weight of choice, the cost of survival. Jaxon stepped back. "We don't need it." "We do." Nyra's voice was firm. "If we want to understand, if we want to stop this, we need to know what they know." He hesitated. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm tired of being their pawn." She placed the crown on her head. The world exploded. Knowledge flooded her mind, a torrent of images, sounds, and sensations. She saw the Council's origins, their endless experiments, their obsession with control. She saw the first trials, the countless lives lost, the hollow crown forged from their despair. And she saw the truth. The Council wasn't testing humanity's worth. They were testing their own. Nyra fell to her knees, the crown's weight crushing her. Jaxon caught her, his hands steady. "What did you see?" he asked. "Everything." Her voice was a whisper. "They're afraid of us, of what we might become." The voice returned, trembling now. "Subject Delta 2 has accessed restricted knowledge. Sanitization protocol initiated." Jaxon pulled the crown from her head. "No." The cavern trembled. The walls began to close in. Nyra grabbed his arm. "We have to go." "Where?" "The extraction point. It's our only chance." They ran, the cavern collapsing around them. The holographic path flickered, guiding them toward the peak. The storm clouds above churned, lightning arcing across the sky. At the summit, a platform awaited, a circular disc etched with glowing runes. The voice, desperate now. "Subjects Gamma 3 and Delta 2, stand down. Compliance is mandatory." Jaxon stepped onto the platform. "Not this time." Nyra joined him. The runes flared to life, the platform humming with energy. The voice screamed, "You cannot escape." The platform rose, lifting them into the storm. Lightning crackled, the air thick with static. Nyra gripped Jaxon's hand. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." The storm swallowed them. Chapter 4. The storm tore at them, a maelstrom of lightning and wind. The platform beneath Nyra's feet shuddered, its runes flickering as it ascended into the chaos. Jaxon gripped her arm, his face set in a grim mask. "Hold on," he shouted over the roar of the storm. Nyra clenched her teeth, her fingers digging into his sleeve. The air crackled with energy, each bolt of lightning illuminating the swirling clouds around them. She could feel the platform straining, its hum growing erratic. "It's not going to hold," she yelled. Jaxon's grip tightened. "It has to." The platform lurched, tilting dangerously. Nyra stumbled, her heart pounding as she fought to keep her balance. The storm seemed alive, its fury directed at them. "They're trying to stop us," she cried. "They're scared," Jaxon shot back. The platform shuddered again, its runes dimming. Nyra's mind raced. The hollow crown's knowledge still lingered in her thoughts, fragments of the Council's secrets. She focused on the platform, on the runes etched into its surface. "I can fix it," she shouted. "How?" "Just trust me." She dropped to her knees, her fingers tracing the runes. The symbols were alien, but their purpose was clear: stabilization, propulsion, containment. She pressed her palm against the central rune, willing it to hold. The platform steadied, its hum deepening. The runes flared brighter, their light cutting through the storm. Jaxon crouched beside her. "What did you do?" I don't know. I just understood." He studied her, his expression unreadable. "The crown." She nodded. "It's still in my head, pieces of it at least." The platform rose higher, the storm's fury intensifying. Lightning arced around them, close enough to singe the air. Nyra's hair stood on end, her skin prickling with static. "We're not going to make it," Jaxon shouted. "We have to." The storm's eye loomed above them, a swirling vortex of calm amidst the chaos. The platform surged toward it, its runes blazing. Nyra's vision blurred, the storm's energy overwhelming her senses. She clung to Jaxon, her mind racing. The council's voice echoed in her thoughts, fragmented and desperate. "You cannot escape." "We already have," she whispered. The platform breached the storm's eye. Silence. The calm was disorienting after the storm's fury. Nyra blinked, her vision adjusting to the sudden stillness. The platform hovered in a vast, empty space, a void filled with faint, shimmering light. Jaxon straightened, his hand still gripping hers. "Where are we?" Nyra shook her head. "I don't know, but it's quiet." The platform drifted forward, its runes glowing softly. The void stretched endlessly, its boundaries undefined. Nyra's mind raced, the hollow crown's knowledge stirring. "This is a gateway," she said. "To where?" "I'm not sure, but it's not controlled by the council." Jaxon frowned. "Then who?" Before she could answer, the void shifted. The light coalesced, forming a path that stretched into the distance. At its end stood a structure, massive, ancient, and radiating power. Nyra's breath caught. "That's impossible." "What is it?" "A nexus, a place where realities converge." Jaxon's grip tightened. "You're saying we're not just off-world, we're between worlds." She nodded. "The Council's experiments, they've been trying to access this place, but they've never succeeded." "And we have." "Not yet." The platform moved toward the nexus, its pace steady. Nyra's mind raced, the hollow crown's knowledge unfolding. She saw glimpses of other worlds, other trials. The Council's fear made sense now. They were afraid of what lay beyond their control. Jaxon's voice broke her thoughts. "What happens when we reach it?" "I don't know, but it's our only chance." The nexus grew larger as they approached, its structure becoming clearer. It was a massive archway, its surface etched with runes that pulsed with light. Beyond it, a swirling portal shimmered, a gateway to countless possibilities. The platform slowed as it neared the nexus, coming to a stop before the archway. Nyra stepped off, her feet touching the void's surface. It was solid, yet weightless, like walking on air. Jaxon followed, his movements cautious. "This feels wrong." "It's not wrong, it's just different." She approached the archway, her hand reaching out to touch the runes. They hummed beneath her fingers, their energy resonating with the hollow crown's knowledge. The council's voice echoed, faint and distant. "Turn back. You do not understand what you are doing." Nyra ignored it. "We're not turning back." Jaxon stood beside her. "What now?" "We step through. And if it's a trap, then we face it together." She took his hand, her grip firm. The runes flared, their light enveloping them. The portal shimmered, its surface rippling like water. Nyra took a deep breath. "Ready." Jaxon nodded. "Always." They stepped through. The world shifted. Nyra's senses were overwhelmed, sights, sounds, and sensations flooding her mind. She saw countless worlds, each one a fragment of possibility. She felt the weight of choices, the paths not taken, the lives not lived. And then it stopped. She stood in a vast hall, its walls lined with towering columns. The air was thick with the scent of ozone, the floor beneath her feet cold and smooth. Jaxon stood beside her, his expression wary. "Where are we?" he asked. Nyra's voice was a whisper. "The Nexus." The hall stretched endlessly, its ceiling lost in shadow. At its center stood a pedestal, and on it rested a sphere, a perfect, shimmering orb of light. Nyra approached it, her steps hesitant. The sphere pulsed, its light casting shifting patterns on the walls. Jaxon stayed close, his hand resting on her shoulder. Careful. She nodded, her eyes fixed on the sphere. This is it, the heart of the Nexus. The Council's voice echoed, faint but desperate. Do not touch it. You do not understand its power. Nyra's hand hovered over the sphere. I think I do. She touched it. The world dissolved. Nyra's mind was flooded with visions, countless worlds, countless lives. She saw the Council's origins, their rise to power, their endless experiments. She saw the first trials, the Hollow Crown's creation, the countless lives lost. And she saw the truth. The Council wasn't testing humanity's worth. They were testing their own. The sphere's light enveloped her, its energy resonating with the Hollow Crown's knowledge. She felt the Nexus's power, its potential, its purpose. Jaxon's voice broke through the chaos. Nyra. She turned, her vision clearing. He stood beside her, his expression filled with concern. What happened? He asked. I saw everything. And she took a deep breath. We have a choice. What kind of choice? The kind that changes everything. The Council's voice echoed, faint and desperate. You cannot control it. You will destroy yourselves. Nyra ignored it. The Nexus is a gateway to countless worlds, countless possibilities. Jaxon frowned, and we can use it to stop the Council, to end the trials. He studied her. You're sure? No, but it's our only chance. The sphere pulsed, its light intensifying. Nyra's mind raced, the Hollow Crown's knowledge guiding her. She saw the path forward, the choices ahead. Jaxon's voice was steady. Then we do it. She nodded. Together. They reached for the sphere. Chapter 5. The moment Nyra and Jaxon touched the sphere, the Nexus erupted. Light tore through the hall, searing and primal, as if the universe itself had taken a breath and held it. Nyra's mind fractured, not from pain, but from scale. She saw the Council's empire stretched across galaxies, their trials repeating on 1,000 worlds, their fear of losing control etched into the fabric of civilizations. Jaxon gripped her shoulder, his voice raw. Nyra. She forced herself to focus. It's a map of everything they've built, everything they've destroyed. The sphere's light coalesced into holographic strands, neural pathways, star systems, the intricate web of the Council's dominion. Nyra's hands moved instinctively, plucking at threads. Here, their core systems, their power source. Jaxon stared at the shimmering nodes. Can we break it? Not break, she met his gaze. Redirect. The Council's voice boomed, warped with static. Cease. You lack the capacity to wield this power. Nyra laughed, a sharp, wild sound. You're right, but they don't. She yanked a thread. The hull dissolved. They stood now in a vast control hub, its walls lined with crystalline panels flickering with alien data. Hundreds of Council enforcers, faceless drones with iridescent carapaces, froze mid-stride. At the room's center hung a pulsating orb, the Council's collective consciousness. Jaxon unsheathed the plasma spine blade. This their brain. Their heart, Nyra said, and their weakness. The drones surged. Jaxon moved like a storm. His blade carved through the first wave, molten shrapnel spraying. Nyra darted to a control panel, her fingers flying. The Hollow Crown's knowledge merged with the Nexus's power. Equations became instincts. Firewalls crumbled to dust. I need time, she shouted. You'll get it. A drone tackled Jaxon. He slammed it against the wall, its exoskeleton cracking. Nyra's screen flashed red, a security protocol. She hissed, rerouting power. Foolish. You cannot override eons of evolution. Watch me. She stabbed a finger into the panel. The orb dimmed. The drones faltered. Jaxon decapitated the last one. What did you do? turn their own systems against them. They're locked out. The orb pulsed erratically. Nyra approached it. This is where they've hidden their true selves, not rulers, not gods, parasites. Jaxon wiped blood from his brow. Then let's exterminate them. She hesitated. It's not that simple. The orb, tied to every world they control, destroy it And what? Innocent species die with them. Jaxon's jaw tightened. So we're stuck. No, Nyra touched the orb. We give them a choice. The orb's surface rippled. Visions flooded the room, the trials on Phaedra Prime, the countless hunts, the screams of species deemed unworthy. Nyra pushed further, forcing the council to see their own reflection. 1,000 civilizations rising against them, armed with the knowledge the trials had unwittingly provided. You dare judge us? No, Nyra said. They will. She tore the orb's defenses open, broadcasting its essence to every enslaved world. Chaos erupted. The hub shuddered as distant explosions echoed through the nexus. Jaxon steadied Nyra. What's happening? Revolutions, uprisings, the council's losing control. The orb darkened, its voice a whisper. You have doomed us all. No, Nyra said. We freed you. The orb shattered. Silence. The control hub dissolved, leaving them adrift in the Nexus's void. Jaxon gripped Nyra's arm. Where now? Home. Which home? She smiled faintly. The one we choose. The Nexus responded. A portal swirled open, revealing Phaedra Prime, its skies clear, its forests untouched by the Council's machines. Jaxon frowned. They'll rebuild, the Council, others like them. Let them try. Nyra stepped toward the portal. We'll be ready. Epilogue, 3 cycles later. The settlement sprawled where the forest met the cliffs. Nyra knelt in the hydroponics bay, her hands buried in soil. Hybrid earth-feeding crops thrived, vines heavy with fruit, leaves shimmering faintly blue. Still talking to plants. She turned. Jaxon leaned in the doorway, a new scar cutting through his stubble. His blade hung at his side, but his eyes were softer now. They listen better than you, she said. He tossed her a seed pod. New strain, resists frost. She caught it, studying the intricate ridges. Where'd you find it? Traded with the Keth. They've started farming the southern plains. Nyra arched a brow. The Keth tried to eat us last cycle. And now they're growing carrots. Progress. They walked to the cliff's edge. Below, the forest teemed with life, refugees from fallen council worlds, native species, humans who'd fled Earth's dying cities. Nyra's chest tightened. Their city, their chaos. Jaxon nodded to the sky. Another one. A ship streaked through the atmosphere, jagged, scavenged, alive with mismatched thrusters. Survivors. You still want to turn them away? He asked. Every time. And you never do. Nyra sighed. We've got space. And you've got a bleeding heart. Says the man who smuggled medical supplies to the Keth. He grunted. They paid in whiskey. They stood in comfortable silence. Phaedra Prime's twin moons rose, casting silver light over the valley. Jaxon's voice softened. You ever wonder what we were before? Yeah. She touched the faint scar on her wrist, a relic from the first trial. Sometimes, but it doesn't matter. No. We're here, we're this. He nodded. Better. A commotion erupted below, shouts, laughter, the clang of construction. Nyra turned. Duty calls. Jaxon fell into step beside her. Always does. The city swallowed them, alive and hungry and theirs. Above, the stars watched. And waited.